And moving forward, ladies and gentlemen, our first session for the day, highlighting on the growth enablers and challenges of Indian e-commerce. We have Mr. Arvind Singhal, Chairman and Managing Director of Technopak. He started his career as a management trainee with the DCM Group in 1979 and worked with the DC Data Products, VXL India Limited in modern cities before founding Technopak in 1992. Welcome, sir. Round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Outside, I would like to thank Ashish for giving me this privilege to be here with you. And it looks like a fantastic event. So I'm sure you'll have a very, very productive next 3 days here. Basically, what I wish to cover today in this next 10 minutes, 15 minutes maybe, is first highlight what I believe are 6 enablers for growth of e-commerce in India. Most of you in any case are in e-commerce business, so I'm not going to be talking to those who already converted to e-commerce. But there's a whole bunch of people outside this particular forum who are still skeptical about that e-commerce might be something for the future, retail might be something in the future, timing is not right. So I want to highlight some of the factors which I personally believe are actually going to accelerate the growth of retailing in India much more quicker and much more solidly than has been the case in the last few years. I'm also going to then spend some time explaining about which I personally believe are some of the key inhibitors, and followed by just a couple of words of advice for all of you here. So if I were to talk about which are the key growth enablers as far as e-commerce in India goes, this is probably the saddest part as far as I'm concerned personally. Simply because since 1997, my company and I have been extremely bullish on the potential of modern retail, the brick and mortar variety in India. Year after year since 1997, most of us, including me, have been very, very confident that modern retail in India will really take off. There are many, many outstanding entrepreneurs in that space, some very, very large companies. They will get the models right. There is no shortage of funding. There is no issue as far as consumers are concerned. Unfortunately, that has not been the case. As we look almost after 24 odd years of startup of the first Shoppers Stop store in the Delhi, 1991, maybe 1990. If we fast forward that to 2014, almost 23 years later, very, very few retailers can actually say that they have got the model right and they are now growing steadily and profitably. A lot of the retailers who started in the 90s have already gone through a number of rejects of the business model, and some of them still haven't got it right if the financial numbers are to go up. In addition to that, there are many, many other headwinds which the traditional brick and mortar retailers face in India. Probably the single biggest headwind is that the financial economics is against them. Space is becoming more expensive, people cost is rising, energy costs increasing, customer purchase coming down because of slowdown of the economy. All of these headwinds will further stammer the growth of the physical retail in India. So why did we grow? And I have a slide at the end. We talk about the relative share of traditional retail, modern brick and mortar retail, and retailers there. But as we will see, at least from our projections, modern retail is something which should have been a big success by now. Unfortunately, that is not likely to be the case. At the same time, and Kumar talked about in the morning very briefly when he talked about the share of watch, we have been tracking this particular thing, which is the share of time as far as consumers are concerned, since 1997. My company in 1997, when we first entered the retail consulting area, we first started to measure, amongst other things, how many kilometers do shoppers go or walk or drive for shopping, how much time are they spending out of the 24 hours in a day and 365 days in a year on various activities, including shopping. Even then, there were unmistakable trends that consumers have got much more pressure on their time, even more pressure than what they might have on their wallet. Today, when we are looking at 2014 itself, there is an incredible quantum of pressure as far as consumers are concerned in terms of time poverty. So it's not only just the financial poverty in some cases. The time poverty is going to be one of the biggest factors, which will therefore drive consumers to look for anytime, anywhere shopping would be the phenomena they would look at. If they're stuck in a traffic for 10 minutes, can they shop? They're not able to sleep in the night at home, or they've got up, can they do some shopping there? So it's about snatching those 5, 10, 15 minutes of shopping windows to shop, rather than planning to go out to shop in a shopping mall or a high street. This is the implication of anytime, anywhere shopping, largely driven by time poverty as opposed to financial poverty. The third part again, which is going to play very, very strongly in favor of e-tail as far as India goes, is a very, very rapid convergence in terms of aspirations and even lifestyles of people across India. I remember 25 years ago, 30 years ago, as a marketer, the cliche used to be that India changes every 50 kilometers or every 50 miles. People look different, people talk different languages, people eat different kinds of food, people have different kinds of clothing, people have different very customs, so on and so forth. A lot of that might still be true. But when it comes to lifestyle aspirations, when it comes to consumption, those aspirations and that consumption behavior is very rapidly converging. Whereas the traditional retailers, the traditional brands, have yet not been able to figure out a way how do we reach out to those consumers who are in relatively small towns or even rural India as such. E-commerce provides a solution to bring similar kind of lifestyle through merchandise to consumers who could be sitting anywhere across India. So this is the third big behavioral change as far as consumers in India are concerned, that a Delhi consumer is not necessarily very different in terms of aspiration than a Jhumri Dalaya customer might be there. And that person may not be very, very different than a customer in farm, at least in terms of brands, in terms of clothing, in terms of footwear, in terms of electronics, and many, many other categories of products. Very similar kind of aspirations are emerging, and this will be the trend in the years to come. We all know what is the rapid pace of penetration of digital devices. Many times the data can be misleading as far as India goes. The way to see the penetration of smart devices, smartphones and payment gateways is not in terms of what percentage of people have it. That could give a misleadingly low number. If you were to think about saying that India currently has about 50 million households, of these 50 million households, probably 250 million households. Of these 250 million households, give or take a few 10 million, probably no more than 50 to 60 or 70 million households are the ones which really form the consuming class. The remaining households are not necessarily the consumers the way most of us would try to reach out to them. They consume, but they consume very basic needs as far as basic food, basic clothing and other basic services are concerned. So when you are looking at the top 50, 60, 70, 80 million households, already most of them have at least one smart device in their possession or will have within the next 12 months. The data has just been released in terms of how many smartphones were sold in India in 2013. The number has been 44 million just in the last 12 months, and these numbers are very rapidly increasing. Indeed, a game changer, if I use this cliche term, game changer, could be with Reliance's launch of Jio sometime between July and September this year, as the market reports say. If Reliance were to launch a Jio platform, which is a platform not only for simple content but entertainment, education, transaction, you name it, that itself would actually put hundreds of millions of homes in India within the next 2 or 3 years having at least one smart device in their house and a potential payment gateway as well. So rapid penetration, whatever the penetration numbers might be today, it's the mobile which is going to give the connectivity with data plans to consumers to shop. Let's not worry too much about tablets, let's not worry too much about the normal broadband. It's the data through the mobile devices which is going to be the transaction device for most Indian customers. Sustained high inflation, unfortunately there are very systemic reasons. I don't want to get into a small class on economics at this point in time, but it is very, very likely that India will see 8 to 10% consumer price inflation for many, many years to come, simply because the demand-supply imbalance what we have built up is not likely to go up in a hurry. there. So no matter what happens, we are in for reasonably high levels of inflation there. What it does basically is that high inflation coupled with low economic growth, relatively low increases in consumers' incomes. More money is going towards the basics. Consumers therefore are looking for much more value, which means in simple terms, cheaper goods. So anybody who can offer them a cheaper option, whatever it might be, 1% cheaper is good enough. You don't have to be 30%, 40% cheaper. The customer is willing to make that change simply because she is so stressed by high inflation and she will remain to be stressed by high inflation. Again, e-commerce offers the potential of tackling some of these inflationary pressures there. Last part, very exciting again, the same thing what I used to think about in the 90s and early 2000s. E-commerce today has got a very, very rich ecosystem of very young or relatively young entrepreneurs. They're really bright. A lot of them are significantly more globally exposed. I'm not using the word globally educated necessarily, but globally exposed. A lot of ambition, good networks there. And this is very important for any industry, any sector to grow. It cannot be grown just by 5, 6, 8, 10, 15 large players. You need to have thousands and thousands of startups taking place every year. Some of them will be completely extinguished within the first few months. Some may last for a year or two. That doesn't matter. So if today's Business Standard or one of the financial paper talks about how many websites are shut down, I think it's a meaningless report completely. If you were to just count how many websites have started up in the last 12 months and how many are actually doing rather well, that's a story to talk about rather than the 8 or 10 or 15 which has gone out of business there, simply because at this very early evolutionary phase of e-commerce in India is expected to happen like this. In fact, this ecosystem, it is our company's prediction, is undergoing or likely to undergo a dramatic transformation within the next 2 years' time. And it's not only just the eBays and Amazon and Flipkarts and Snapdeal which are going to make a huge impact as far as India's e-commerce is concerned. It is my personal belief that Reliance itself could actually be one of the toughest and the most aggressive e-commerce players in India within the next 24 months itself. Just think about, they're already the largest retailer in India. With their 4G networks, they will actually have proprietary control on millions of customers. They can deploy technology as well as anybody else there. So I would actually very excitedly as a consumer, wait for Reliance and Tata Group for the same reason. Aditya Birla Group maybe for the same reason. Sunil Bharti Mittal also maybe for the same reason. So we will not only see this ecosystem of entrepreneurship in e-commerce in India getting richer, but also some real heavyweights likely to enter in this market within the next 2 years or earlier. So, with all of these exciting things, which are the things which could inhibit, which are currently inhibiting the growth of this sector? To me, personally, the single weakest link, and will remain the weakest link for many, many years to come, is actually the weak and very, very inadequate last mile delivery infrastructure. With very due respect to some of the people who are also appearing on this as a list of sponsors, and there are several others, the amount of investment which is needed to put a pan-India delivery network B2C for all forms and shapes of merchandise, perishable and non-perishable, the numbers are in tens of billions of dollars in terms of physical investment. Very, very few Indian companies are capitalized to do so. The large global companies, whether they are FedExes of this world or DHLs and others, would first want the market to become relatively large. So it's a chicken and the egg story. Who puts in this last mile network, which is very, very capital intensive besides knowledge intensity. So while growth will take place, very, very soon we will reach this, like unfortunately like our own highways, we call them highways, but as soon as they're open, they're choked because the width is so narrow and there is more traffic. We will see that same thing happening there, that while everybody is very excited about e-commerce there, but how do you deliver that parcel or that refrigerator or something else to somebody in Manipur or in Imphal? That's going to be a huge challenge there. There is no immediate solution in making this part is concerned. The second thing which is detrimental to the overall growth of this industry because it gives bad press and nothing else, a lot of players in this sector are actually trying to do things which they should not have been doing. It's like .com version 1. Sticky eyeballs and eyeballs basically determining whether you have a business or not, other than whether you have a financial model to support it or not. Far too many expectations are being set for consumers which are unrealistic to sustain in times to come. And if you spoil those customers by saying that, look, I'm going to deliver you 3 different sizes of pairs of shoes to your house and you can pick and choose whichever you like. I'm going to deliver 100 pieces of this merchandise to your house. You can't bring a retail shop to a customer's place there and then say you may buy, may not buy something from there. And by the way, you can pay when you feel like paying. If you don't want to pay, it's okay too, I'll take it back. All of those kind of expectations are very unrealistic expectations. Customers will love it. You do any kind of a consumer survey, customers will demand all of this and some more. But whether it makes business sense or not, that is something which I personally believe that a lot of players should actually start looking at, because if they don't do that, you're actually creating a problem for yourselves in the times to come. The consumers, the moment you take something away and say you pay for it, consumers may not want to pay for it. Today there might be, simply because convenience is the overriding reason why they actually want to go to e-commerce. You can charge a premium for that rather than charging a discount for that actually. Limited access to financial capital. This is just a piece of advice to the people who are sitting in this room, because I've heard through NASCOM and others, some of the large Indian players wanting to restrict FDI in this space. Guys, I hope nobody sitting in this room who has been against that. If you want to look back at history, don't look back too far away. Look back just 15 years ago. Without naming any 1 or 2 or 3 large Indian retailers, they all thought, let us not have FDI in India. They used political parties as the front, but from behind the scenes, there were some of these large Indian groups who actually put the spanner in the wheel for FDI, believing that they will build a large business in India and then they will sell it out to somebody else. Not one single transaction has happened in India has been about it. A lot of these companies are bleeding money. You need capital, you need competition, you need technology. So please, for heaven's sake, through your industry bodies and associations, do not even get into this temptation to start saying we don't need FDI in e-commerce in India. Local guys can do it. No. Let it be free competition. Let it be free access to capital. Some of you will find very easy exits if there are global players who are in India here. Rather than trying to fight them, they will come in any case. And cross-border is a reality in any case. So you can't fight them. The physical retailers in India could not fight how can e-commerce players fight? So just be careful. There's a limited capital available right now. We need more capital in this industry. Poor quality of data communication networks. We all know that. Call drops, very, very poor speeds, and so on and so forth. But hopefully this might improve in the next 2 years. So these are basically the 4 limiting factors. If I were to come to a conclusion in terms of what could be the future of e-tailing, and I'm talking only merchandise, I'm not adding any services in this, and some suggestions for e-commerce players, e-tailers in this case. This is what I meant in terms of saying that, look, why unfortunately, very, very sadly, modern retail in India never really fulfilled the promise it offered in the early 90s there. So while there's some growth, the numbers in the top basically talked about the merchandise retail market in India, and the other are basically the split of the share of the channel there. Traditional retail, notwithstanding what is being discussed in the parliament and otherwise, is still going to be the largest channel in India, not only till 2023, but even 2033 and 2043, and our company has given those projections to the Ministry of Commerce and various other people in the government that why are you worried about modern independent retailers? Their absolute numbers are going to grow, not decrease in the next 20 years. Yes, the physical modern retail will also grow, but the fastest growth, of course, is going to be merchandise, e-commerce, pure play retailers. So our projections are that by 2023, we could be looking at almost 7% or more would be the share of pure play e-tailers there, which translates to about $50 to $60 billion of merchandise sales. Not bad for the industry, which is just beginning to start at this point in time. Some suggestions for all the players. It's such a rapidly moving marketplace. Consumers' behaviors are changing, technology is changing, competition, competitive landscapes are changing there. No matter what your business model is today, please revisit your strategy, revisit the competitive environment as frequently as you can. Maybe a model requires a tweaking every 3 months or every 6 months. Don't be so shy that I just spent a strategic exercise 6 months ago, 1 year ago, and I have to wait it out at least for 2 or 3 years before I need to make any changes. Simply because this industry is changing so rapidly, and every other things are changing so rapidly. Like I said, consumers are changing rapidly. It's a technology availability makes it more easy to do so. So that's my first bit of advice. Second bit of advice is differentiation. Everybody talks today about getting on marketplaces. Think from a consumer's point of view. The consumer will get completely lost if she has to go to check on 20, 30, 40, 50 marketplaces to find the merchandise. And Kumar talked about unlimited aisles. According to me, that's an absolute recipe for disaster. Consumers, the reason they're going on a particular website is not that they want to spend 1 hour looking for something. There is no joy of shopping online either. You just want to complete the transaction because you are time poor. So it's about curated merchandise. You may have more options online than you can have physically. But if you put an infinite array of options in terms of categories, brands, price points, SKUs, you will actually discourage your customer with excessive choice rather than encourage them. And there are many other ways to differentiate beyond just pricing. So for heaven's sake, a recommendation would be like this, that just because Amazon is doing something, unless you think you are as smart or smarter than Amazon, don't even try to just be a cheap clone of them there. Temporarily you might succeed there, because Amazon, in my opinion, very highly respected player, they've not even really entered India in the big sense of the word. And then you have Alibaba and many others who might come to India in the next 12, 18, 24 months time. So try to be different than others. The market is large enough to take care of most ambitions, but a few multi-billion-dollar retailers, the big groups in India, they differentiate. Absolutely, the last part is like this. Please do focus on profitability. It's good to look for acquiring customers. Unfortunately, even the physical retailers in India did not look into profitability. They now talk about profitability, for sure, when they are running out of investors or investors' patience. But even early on, rather than saying that there is any economy of scale, there is nothing like an economy of scale as far as the business goes. So if you cannot at least on an Excel sheet show money today, it's better not to be in this business there. So try to focus on profitability also in addition to growth and expansion. Thank you very, very much. Have a successful